You are now listening to Nexxlegacy Radio, a radio station for the people.
All right, this is Charles. I am Branded Madison of Nexxlegacy Radio, and I have a wonderful guest. And I've been excited since, a little more than a week or so ago because I get a chance to kind of talk about some things that's in my wheelhouse that really kind of drives me in terms of not just health, but health education, coaching, empowerment, human health and wellness, and, just trying to get out of certain cycles that I feel like us as human beings tend to get in some occasions. And I have James Vaughn of Vaughn Health with me on Nexxlegacy Radio to kind of talk about just his journey and what he thinks about just certain things that we see in life and how important it is as far as health, nutrition, just different types of things that we can continue to walk this earth and continue to thrive and live as long as we possibly can and be empowered to do certain things. And I have James Vaughn of Vaughn Health with me on Nexxlegacy Radio. Thanks for coming on, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on the show here, Charles. I've been looking forward to this as well. When you first reached out to me and I discovered your program and what your mission is, I instantly knew we had to connect because we are on the same mission to empower communities to be healthy and to thrive, because that's not just to help people be well, but also create safety in communities. And we could get more into that later.
And I appreciate that, and it means a lot because to me this is a total passion of mine as far as doing certain things to pay it forward and being around like-minded individuals who have the same passion. Not just, your business is not even for you anymore, it's for the people. And I think, mine kind of rolls into that same category as well. And I think it's important for people to talk about how passionate they are about specific things, but also self-growth and accountability and realizing certain things about yourself and unlocking a few doors that you can be able to, teach and preach and do the same thing as well. So I'm going to start by asking you, when did healthcare and certain things of exactly what I just said kind of became your wheelhouse, your passion for what you do in life?
Well, it's really interesting that a whole bunch of what I would call good and bad were necessary. Even the bad was good because I grew up poor, but my parents were, I should say my parents were poor. I made no money as a kid. My father really prioritized the great outdoors and exercise. And so I had to learn to keep up with them and really push the limits of my body. And I learned so much about not just what I'm capable of physically, but also, of resilience, physical resilience, and how that can put everything else in perspective, especially when you go out into the wilderness for days at a time and you're living out in the wild and you're learning to live without all those creature comforts of the modern world. You really learn how much we really don't need, that we get so caught up in our modern day-to-day lives and take for granted until the power's gone out, or now we don't have hot water, and people lose it. There's a raid on stores. We saw that with the pandemic, and people just they literally that close to complete chaos, every day of our lives. And we'll get more to that in a bit, but to stay on point here, my mother was a physical therapist, and she was really into personal growth and nutrition. And also she learned shiatsu, a form of Japanese acupressure therapy that she started teaching me when I was 10 years old. And I realized in hindsight that it wasn't coincidental that she started teaching that to me when my parents separated. So that's the good bad. It was bad that the family broke up, but it was good because she probably wouldn't have started teaching me how to do that for her benefit. Now, of course, it benefited me. And then when she remarried, my stepdad told me that I was too old to do that with my mother. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? It was just the implication that the silent thing he wasn't saying. was just so bizarre to me. It was like, whoa, this guy's crazy. But my mother supported it. And so now I have been deprived of getting daily shiatsu from somebody, and not just receiving it, but giving it. And I learned later, and science proves this, that it benefits people to do massage and body work for someone else. In fact, we can all understand why it feels good to do good things for other people, to make other people happy. So I naturally just started doing it instinctually for my friends. And it wasn't until I was 20 years old when I experienced the combination of Tui Na, which is the original, like the grandparent of all bodywork and massage therapy, Shiatsu, it's a Japanese cousin, and a form of acupressure therapy called Jin Shin, also known sometimes as Jin Shin Jitsu. And so that's like acupuncture without the needles. And so when I got that specific combination, it left me feeling like I was in an altered state, and it rang my body and soul that this was the path for me. And up until that point, I was extremely anxious about what I was going to do with my life. I was 20 years old, and I still hadn't figured it out. It was stressing me the heck out. And when this happened, it was like, well, wow, no question. But then over the years, as I started integrating Chinese medicine and therapeutic bodywork into my life on a regular basis, that I truly began to realize what was possible for people and all the benefits that I experienced and started helping other people experience. It just became the jet fuel that makes me bounce out of bed every morning to help other people discover that too.
Wow. And also pull back from what you just said. You said you were 20 and you were, trying to figure out life and your career, your path and things like that. Most 20 years, I don't know about you, but when I was 20, I was in college, but I had no clue as far as what it was that I was meant to. But for you to be able to have that drive in you is commendable. And also just thinking about just some of the things, holistic health, nutritional counseling, the Chinese medicine that you said, alternative medicine as well. It's there. A lot of people have talked about it. You're talking about it as well. This is a business that you do, but also it's not as, I want to say, popular as, mainstream medicine, I guess you could say. Why is that?
That's a really good question, Charles. It's really interesting that we call it alternative medicine when it's actually traditional medicine. This is the original medicine. In fact, massage therapy was the first form of medicine, and we all can relate to this because every time we have a sore muscle, we instinctively grab it and we start massaging it. We don't think about it, so we don't know we're doing massage on ourselves. And so unless people grow up in an environment like I did where they get someone else to do that for them, they don't learn, how essential it is as a fundamental health care. Just like good nutrition and good exercise. And a lot of people are not raised in families that have that knowledge or have the time to, put together healthy meals in the right combinations. They don't have the education. It's not in our public education. When I took my first shiatsu class at the Acupressure Institute in Berkeley back in 1995, I was astounded that this isn't part of our basic public education, because we didn't even have to learn anatomy or kinesiology for that. It was literally monkey see, monkey do, and just like when I was 10 years old. And if I hadn't experienced that at 10 years old, I wouldn't have been able to see at 20 in hindsight how easy it is for everybody to learn this. In fact, Sweden is ahead of the curve, and they introduced what's called the Massage in Schools program, where they start kids in preschool all the way up to age 12, teaching them how to do shiatsu on each other. So they're learning about the power of positive, consensual touch through clothing and how to set healthy boundaries, and they get the choice of participating or not, and how to communicate their needs. It's amazing. And once people realize how easy it is to learn to do this with people they love, they'll wonder why it's not been part of generations of families.
Yeah.
And that's where it needs to be. This is why the massage industry is in such disarray, because it was never supposed to be commercialized like that. You know, where you have strangers touching strangers for money. That's why it's just a hair's width away from prostitution. And that's why we have the professional massage therapists are beleaguered by all the organized criminal activity of prostitution masquerading as massage parlors. And much of that is fueled by human trafficking. So what I started learning early in my career, that 99% of people can't afford to see a professional as often as they need. All the while I'm thinking, well, why are people just learning this? So I just started teaching them. I started teaching families and friends how to do this for each other so they can get as often as they need from someone they know for free. And then that is how we can bring it back to the family where it belongs. You know, and it's interesting that my stepfather said, "Oh, you're too old to do that with your mother." He didn't understand, and he was, you know, in his generation, you know, was conditioned to conflate touch with either sex, property, you know, like marriage, or violence. And most people in our society are, without realizing it. And until they get to experience this and it'll change their world. But getting back to the point, so this is just one form of healthcare that most people are missing out on, and they don't have to. It's easy to learn. I actually created a manual, an illustrated manual, where any two people can start learning how to do this for each other in as little as 1 hour. That's really all it takes. And then it's just practice from there. And now a lot of people think, oh, well, I've tried to massage my partner and my hands get cramped. Well, that's just because they didn't get proper instruction. And it's super easy. In fact, you know, the way I train it helps people realize they've really known all along. They know how their body works because they've been living in one. And they know how to, you know, sense another person's body through their hands because they've been doing it with their own. And if they've been in any partnership, they've learned how to do that too. But like even just hugging family, you know, you learn how much is too much and when you need more.
Right. Very true. James Vaughn is my guest on Nexxlegacy Radio, and I always look at it like this. You said a lot that really kind of made me think too, and I always feel like we're put on this earth to, you know, serve in some capacity, but also there's so many, you know, before the world began, or even, you know, the first man, woman, or whatnot. There's always clues that are left in regards to how we all evolve. I feel like there has been medicine placed on this earth before we knew about it, and it was up to us to find it or learn more about it, teach others as well so they can be able to preserve or, you know, filter through life and things like that in general. And there's some alternatives or certain other things that will steer you away. It's, you know, the best in the world, worst of both worlds. I always believed in that, but also believe, James, that, you know, as much information as we have, and we have social media, we have so many different things that can kind of give us some education. We still don't know. We still don't know enough. We're still clueless in a sense. Do you think that's a challenge that a lot of us have as far as, you know, what you've mentioned? Like you mentioned, alternative medicine is not alternative. It's always been here. So do you feel like even though we know a lot, we still don't know enough is what I'm asking?
Well, yeah, well, you know, just like all the cells in our body specialize in their function, and when they don't, things go wrong. That's what keeps our bodies together, is every cell doing its job, right? Your liver has to do its liver job. Your heart has to do its heart job, et cetera. And when they stop doing their jobs, then you start having problems. Well, human society became the same way. Now, back when we were hunter-gatherers in small groups, so everybody had all the essential life skills they needed to hunt, to make clothing, they learned what kind of plants to use for medicine.
Right.
Now, obviously there's a lot they still didn't know, but over time, with the advent of agriculture and permanent settlements that allowed for larger groups of people, well, people had more freedom to specialize in things. And so there became greater independence that sort of meshed with interdependence, where nobody could survive out in the wild on their own anymore. They needed a whole group of people. Now, even as tribes, of course, as hunter-gatherers, they still needed their group. But this is why the original worst thing, what was worse than death back in those days, was to be booted out of your city, or your village, and left in the wild without knowing how to survive. And so if you take any one of us today and you throw us out in the wild, we're done for in very short order.
Right.
So, when our power goes off, that's about as close as most people are willing to get to, how close we are to, or how dependent we are on these modern technologies and whatnot. And medicine became the same way. So we got, who of us know how to create an electrical plant or to build a car or do medicine, surgery? These became specialized things. So now that's why we have doctors, we've got lawyers, we've got engineers, we've got everything and everyone in between. And so, and because of that, and there's only so many hours in the day for us to learn things. And so, and traditionally, it was only the lords of the land, back in feudal days,
right?
The people who could read, all the peasants, they couldn't read. They didn't have the privilege, and so secrets were kept from them, from the masses. So people need time, and because our socioeconomic system is built the way it is right now, our time is conflated with money. And so if we can't make enough money, we don't have enough time to do the things that we need to do. And that's what inspired my program that I launched in January, to help people have the time and the money to do all the things that everybody needs to do every day to optimize their physical, social, and mental health, because all three of those are interrelated. And this reminded me to get back to a point when you were asking it previously about why is making healthcare accessible to everyone so important. So we all know that when we're stressed out, we're not at our best. When people are suffering, they are naturally inclined to be more self-centered because they need to take care of their needs first. That is the priority. So when people are depressed, anybody who's had a partner that's afflicted with depression, clinical depression, they've experienced how their partner just can't be, they seem like they're inconsiderate and selfish, and that's biological. So most people today, they think that when they're stressed out, it's just about money, their job, and people. They don't realize until they've been healthy and then deprived of good nutrition and regular exercise, hydration, and deep sleep. Just these four things alone, biological strategies. When they get those right, they experience, it's like night and day. They don't realize how much of our anxiety and depression, you could literally be depressed just not being hydrated enough. You can feel anxious for not being hydrated enough. Next time you're feeling thirsty, take a sip of water and really savor it and notice how it feels in your body all the way through to your bones. And so this is where mindfulness becomes important, to really pay attention to what we're feeling. And that could be, a lot of us are just not taught how to feel our feelings. And that's a whole other topic that we would probably need a whole other episode about to get into another time. So, but when people can get healthy, then they can show up for each other, the people that they care about, and they can rise above anything. They will find a resilience and an adaptability to the stressors in life when they are taking care of their body first and foremost and helping others do the same.
And James Vaughn is my guest on Nexxlegacy Radio. Do you feel that the challenge of healthcare being accessible for everyone, is it more so a chess piece in a crazy game in this world that we have today, or do you feel like it's something where it's there but we can find it, or there's some other third-party obstacle that might float in people's way in regards to it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, everything we need to know is accessible, is out there, but we need time and, for many of us, just luck to find it. I had incredible luck that I was born to a physical therapist who just happened to learn shiatsu as part of her training, and that I had a father who was very much into exercise and to the great outdoors, and that because my mother taught me shiatsu, and then it was taken away from me when I was 12. And then I got to experience it here's the story. I was doing shiatsu on a buddy's shoulders after classes at college one day, lamenting about how I couldn't decide what to do with my life. I was, excuse me, I think I'm getting a call here. Okay. So my problem was there were too many things I was interested in. And I saw myself going down one path and then wondering, well, how am I ever going to get to do the other thing? You know, I knew that I wouldn't have the time to do all these things because, you know, I didn't realize I was realizing when I was that young that everybody was stuck in their career, and I didn't want to be stuck. And I didn't know how not to be stuck if I pursued any of these other careers that were in front of my face. But here I am doing shiatsu on my buddy. He said, well, you should do this for a living. You're amazing. And I said, oh, if only I could do that. That would be amazing. And he said, well, you can. There are schools for it and everything. And I was like, what? Because we were poor. And my mom was, you know, supporting me on her own. My father wasn't paying child support or anything. So, so she never came home from work and said, oh, I just had the best massage. I never even heard the word massage before. And for some reason, she never thought to tell me, oh, if you ever want to do this for a living, you could do that. So I went home that day and busted out the yellow pages in 1994. We didn't have the internet yet. And there were schools for it, just like my friend said. And my mother comes home right on that beat from work and said, oh, hey, Jimmy, what did you learn in school today? And I put my fists on my hips and gave her the stinky face and said, I learned I could have been a massage therapist by now. And she smacked her forehead and said, oh, I can't believe I never thought of that. So, so it took a lot of different good luck and bad luck that turned out to be good luck for me to discover that. And so many people don't. I have worked on over 50,000 people over the years, and a good portion of them never experienced body work before that time. People in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And oh my God, when they're after 50, even 40, it just broke my heart that they didn't get to experience this younger in life, because I could see and I experienced how much of a difference it makes for people. So yeah, a lot of this luck, but a lot of that comes down to socioeconomics. You know, there's a lot of financial obstacles for people. Like I said, time is money. So when people have to work 2 jobs, 18-hour days to support a kid, or even just themselves because they've never got the skills to get a job that pays better. So what do they do? You know, and my mother gave me this phrase, I don't know where she got it from, I'll never forget it, that when you're up to your butt in alligators, you forget that your primary objective is to drain the swamp.
That's cool. And so, love it.
Okay. You know, when you are struggling to survive, and I know what that's like because I've been homeless 3 times in my life. And this is also what gave me so much appreciation for the struggle that so many people in our society experience. Because it wasn't because of drug addiction or due to being irresponsible. It was just bad luck. And also me not knowing what my options were at the time.
Right.
And it was only through a series of miracles and determination to push through and to get back on my feet that I managed to thrive and get out of homelessness. But so many people don't, because a lot of it, especially when it comes to drug addiction, their brain just is completely abandoned them at that point. They just don't have that executive function to, put things in perspective and to make the choices that will help them get out of that. And it's not their fault. And that's the problem. A lot of people think, it's a choice. No, it's not. Once your brain is addicted, it's choosing for you. And people need to understand that about their feelings and how much of that is determined by trauma they've gone through and how their brain is literally trying to keep them safe. And that means staying within the bounds of what they're familiar with, even if it sucks. There's that saying we all know, better the devil you know. And so this is why it's so hard for people to break out of bad habits and to break out of self-limitation, especially when they don't even know that they're limiting themselves unconsciously. And it's all because that somehow became the new normal for their brain. And until people learn how the brain works and how the unconscious mind works and what strategies we can use to basically hack that system to liberate ourselves, it takes God's grace, for people to find the people that can turn them onto these resources and these wells of ancient knowledge that have been passed down for thousands of generations that just got filtered out through modern medicine. And when you were asking before about traditional versus, or alternative versus popular, well, it's not even that, Western medicine is popular. It's just that's what we have been taught. And, acupuncture has had tons of studies done on it because it's remained ubiquitous since the Bronze Age. Whereas this form of acupressure therapy I mentioned called Jin Shin, it was only rediscovered around 1920. And even then, to date, there's maybe one or two studies done on it, one for chronic pain, one for heart rate, and they're really not very impressive. But so doctors are typically not going to be learning Chinese medicine. Western doctors aren't learning Chinese medicine. Chinese medicine doctors are not learning Western medicine for the most part. You're very rarely going to find somebody who has an MD and an OMD or an LAC after their name. So, never the twain shall meet, as it says. And so, most of the people who learn this form of acupressure therapy tend to be massage therapists. And I have not met a single massage therapist who became a doctor or a doctor who became a massage therapist in 29 years now. So that's the problem. These two worlds are not overlapping yet, but it is starting to shift. It's just happening slowly. But I got sick of waiting for the system and the status quo to allow it to happen for the general public. And so that's why I took matters into my own hands, literally and figuratively, and created the program that I did back in January. So that once people go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say, James, to me, I think it's important with Vaughn Health, and to me, this hits home when in your About Me section, our founding principle centers on helping everyone realize their fullest potential physically, mentally, emotionally, and socially to get the most out of life and be the best version of themselves for everyone they care about in the world. And I think that hits home just because I feel like it's a lot of people are, like you mentioned, go, 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 go. I have to work 2 jobs, 18 hours. There's so many different personal obstacles they need to have. They don't have enough time, in their opinion, whatever the case may be. And some of this is it not like a certain cycle of certain generational curses that needs to be broken in terms of how they think about what's in the now versus let's just think on the other side of the brain so I can be able to at least achieve some of this, because you're going to wish you had it later, right?
That's right. We have so much of the blind leading the blind, and that's, not faulting anybody. That's not a judgment. It's just a simple fact. When people are not raised by somebody with a degree in nutrition or a degree in massage therapy or exercise, they're just hardworking people doing the best that they can because that's what they inherited from their parents who did the best that they could, right? And we all understand here in the United States, how this is a generational thing. And so when somebody is born into poverty, instead of born to a very successful business person, how are they going to learn? Who's going to teach them how to be successful? Right. And we're all getting programmed literally up to age 7 when our brain, we're like in a hypnotic state. Dr. Bruce Lipton wrote a whole book about this called The Biology of Belief. And people don't know this in the general public. And so they don't realize how, they're getting trained from womb to age 7, to like, okay, this is how it is. And this is how I'm supposed to be. And we model our parents instinctually because that's how we learn to survive until we start to gain enough skills and knowledge and experience to assert our independence. But then we have the society that really champions independence and self-sufficiency to a fault, so that we unlearn how important it is to have healthy interdependence with people. Now, of course, that is different in different kinds of families and cultures and states and communities, of course, but still, when we're raised, a lot of people, we're talking about hardworking people working the 2 jobs, just trying to make ends meet. We weren't born just to pay bills.
Right.
Right. When we instinctively know this, but there is also this layer that has been written over our brains by our culture and society that, equates self-worth with money. And, when we are poor, naturally, in this kind of a society, we're going to have a hard time not feeling that our self-worth is being impacted by that. And so there's this extra shame that so many people feel without even realizing it, that's just draining their spirit and their energy, their physical energy, with this unconscious monkey on their back that's saying, you're a worthless yada yada, and that's all you're going to be because that's all your parents were in yada yada. And so this is why it's important to, we as a society have an obligation, or I should say, those of us who know better and know these things that I've learned and a handful of other people in society have, we have an obligation, a moral obligation to make that knowledge accessible for people. And it's not just about the knowledge, but to give them an actual economic structure to access that. And I realized back in January, it's just, as I told you before, I had been teaching people how to do body work for each other, but I was just charging like a normal hourly rate, a little bit more, because I realized, well, I'm empowering people so that they're not going to need people like me anymore. And that's the goal, but then I realized, wow, I'm probably not charging enough. And then I thought, well, what would people kind of understand to put it in perspective? I thought, okay, well, if you want to get a 90-minute massage for 2 people at a massage franchise once a week for 1 year, that would cost $9,360. And I thought, I could charge a heck of a lot less than that, but still more than I need. And then I could use that money to pay, people to do marketing, or to pay people to become coaches for my company, so that they go to my training. Instead of a school that just gives you your diploma or your certificate and boots you out the door and wishes you good luck in finding a job, I actually hire the people that graduate my program. But I go through an interview process first to make sure that they're going to, be a good fit to be the face of my company. So I can't promise that to everybody, but what I can do is promise everybody that empowerment. And so that I could give them a place that they can start getting all those benefits of not just therapeutic body work, but also acupuncture without the needles, and somatic therapy, which is great for discharging trauma from the body, and all of the dysfunctional unconscious coping mechanisms that we acquired without realizing it, that have been suppressing our ability to even perceive our potential, much less attain it.
Wow. Not only is this informative, James Vaughn is my guest on Nexxlegacy Radio. I think it's important for the people, the world out here listening and will be listening, to know the impact that that can be had when you just focus on certain things that can be able to make you whole, in a sense. And that's what I mean when I mention or throughout generational curses, because it doesn't all have to be bad curses. You could be the first person to graduate from college. You could be the first person to buy a home. You could be the first person in your generation or generations past to own a business, or whatever the case may be. But some of those is always sparked by, certain veils that is still held up within their face, so they can't see what's in front of them in certain cases. And let's put a positive impact on what surrendering would look like when you realize that everything that you could be, from what I just said, breaking these generational curses, surrendering to self-realization. How would that look for the individual who has finally realized that, you know what, I think I have it now? And it's a daily practice of surrendering, right?
Well, how would you explain to me about the surrendering part? What are we surrendering to?
I think we're surrendering. We're dropping that veil, right? We're surrendering to what can be, and then practicing these steps on a regular basis on what it is that I want out of myself, out of life, how I can be able to pay it forward. Not just unlocking myself, being able to unlock myself and then show everybody else with no conditions that this can be a good way because of the steps that I've taken. And to me, I think surrendering can mean a lot of different things about who I am and what I want to be and how I want to be for myself and for others.
That's a tricky one, because a lot of people are not even aware of what they're holding on to that they need to surrender. But I'll give you an example.
True.
A lot of people have defined themselves according to, as a victim, right? They have let themselves off the hook of accountability and responsibility by saying, oh, I'm a victim, or I went through this, or I went through that, so I'm entitled to do nothing, or I'm entitled to this or that. So we have to be willing to, get to a point where that just ain't fun anymore. That's not cool. That's not going to be a life worth living. That's not going to be a pathway to creating a legacy, a reason to live. I mean, like I said before, the universe didn't just manifest so people can pay bills. So we have to ask, well, then why does anything exist at all? Because the late British philosopher Alan Watts said, existence is very peculiar. It takes energy and effort, and it would be so much easier if nothing existed at all. So, not to get religious or anything like that, but we would still have to acknowledge, well, why does anything exist, right? I mean, it's not even important.
Exactly.
It's not even important how it came to exist as opposed to why it exists. And so, in the same vein, it doesn't matter that we do exist. What matters is why we exist. And so we have to have a why to give us that vision for where to steer our life, to orient our sail, as it were. Because without that, we are lost. It becomes pointless to live. I mean, we're just going through the motions of being physically alive, and we're paying our bills and doing our jobs. But, to what end? Just to pass on our genes? But why? Why does that even matter? So we have to really get into that. And I basically live by what Jimi Hendrix said. When the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace. And that's what we're really talking about here, about, breaking what we're surrendering. We're surrendering ego. We're surrendering fear. We're surrendering excuses. We are giving up all the things that keep us from realizing our full potential, and not just us, but helping others do the same. Because if we're not helping others do the same, then what does it matter? They say it takes two to tango. Well, no, it takes two people who know how to tango. If you get one person that doesn't know how to tango with a tango dancer, it ain't going to be a fun show. It's going to be a very cringeworthy. So we all got to learn to tango, and we all have to start with wanting to. And what's stopping us from wanting to tango? Because life can be so juicy, so beautiful, so amazing when we realize what we're really capable of and what others are capable of if we give them the space to show up in their full glory, the full light of being. And we've all experienced this. We've seen people who are doing the work that they love, when people are full of passion and purpose. We can feel that energy in their presence. Even if people who just start going to the gym for the first time, there's a reason why it feels better and we feel more motivated to work out when we're in the gym than we tend to be on our own. That's because we're surrounded by all that energy. We're seeing people, they're making an effort. Yeah, I made it. I'm here. We're doing it together. It's, again, that's love. That's the power of community. Most people aren't realizing, oh, yes, this is, and I'm not a hippie by any stretch of the imagination. But when we're at the gym, there's a community in there. When we do group things, we all need community. We're social animals. We can't thrive, completely isolated. And we see the harm it causes when people are socially isolated. And I've experienced it myself through financial hardship when I felt like I can't even justify putting a dime or driving 5 miles to my friend's house because I need to save money for gas and get, better work, So I even though I learned so much from my hardships, and I know that it's essential that everybody experiences them to a good degree, there's a lot that we don't have to experience either. Life could be a lot easier, and it doesn't have to be so hard. And if everybody can be given the opportunity to thrive, that will be the tide that lifts all ships, like John F. Kennedy was talking about in 1963. That's why I developed this program that I did in January, so that I can help people, afford the time and the money to really take care of themselves. And that means spending time with your friends, your family, with just yourself, having your personal time, and exercise, do all the stretching and cardio and weight training people need to do to, feel amazing. And it's not even about, looking sexy or anything like that. That's just about feeling good, Right. And then having creative time. A lot of people don't realize how important that is, but it's so healthy for the brain to do creative stuff. And that's like another way people are starving out there because they don't feel like they have the time and the bandwidth to do creative stuff, whether that's music or that's art, photography, even gardening. Incredibly therapeutic. Feng shui, organizing the house, making it look like nesting, writing a book. We all sense this internal light that we have that wants to be beaming out into the world. Like, here I am, I'm here to be this, and again, not to be religious, but I have come to the point where I believe that everyone is, the whole reason for everything to exist at all is for what we would call God to experience infinite potential. So you are God playing the Charles Madison show. I'm God playing the James Vaughn show. And we can't play that if we know that we are all powerful. And I'll give you a good example of why that's important, because if you're the author, you know how the story is going to go. And so how's it going to surprise you? So now when we read a really good book for the first time that we didn't write, and we can't stop turning the page, we're like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? And you can't put it down until you're done. Or you see an amazing movie and you're on the edge of your seat the whole time, or at a play and you're just, oh my God, what's going to happen next? And you're so drawn into it. And you get to the end of it, you're like, oh man, that was good. And you wouldn't have had that if you already knew the end of the story. Now, a lot of people will even read that book and go back and see that movie or see that play again or listen to that song again sometime later. And it's not going to have quite the same impact as before because now you already know what's going to happen. You know what to expect. And also, if you know what to expect, how is anything going to surprise you? How can you be thrilled, when you already know what's going to happen? I mean, what's the point of existing if you already know how it's going to end?
That's right.
And if we can bring that into our current state and appreciate the unknown, the mystery, and not being all powerful, we can't appreciate the good without the bad. No, there's no sweet without sour. There's no pain without joy, right? So being able to experience these things and appreciate those feelings instead of run from the feelings is what allows us to expand that sphere of what we're capable of feeling and then doing and how we can show up for each other.
That's right. That's right. James Vaughn is my guest on Nexxlegacy Radio. And in closing, a couple more questions. First, one last one. What can we look for in the future of healthcare? Do you see, positives? And also, why is it important to be proactive when it comes to your healthcare instead of reactive? Because, I'm sick now. Oh, I need to go look for healthcare, as opposed to, let's just make sure that I have these steps for myself and, kids, if you have them, or family or whoever, someone that you can be able to share the knowledge as far as well in terms of healthcare. So what can we look forward to it? Is it more stuff like from what you're preaching and teaching to the public? What can we look forward to?
Well, there's this saying, and I don't know who originally said it, that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And if anyone's ever tried to do a marathon without training, I don't know anyone who's tried to do a marathon without training, but I bet there had to be somebody who tried to, who's, had a friend that did it and was like real pumped, like, oh, I want to do that. And they did put in the training for it. They suffered and they fell hard on their face. They probably didn't even finish it. So, but what if that was our natural state, to be Iron Man, right? To, swim, I don't know how long it is. I've never done an Ironman myself. But I just literally never had time to, put the time and training into that. But if that was our natural state and then we were injured, well, let's bring it down to what we could call the common person here, including myself. I've been injured, I've been sick, and they really made me appreciate, how when I was not sick or injured. So most people, unfortunately, don't think about it until it happens. And then now it's harder to recover. And again, if they didn't grow up learning how the body works, then, they're just going to stay in the routines.
Right.
And again, that's the blind leading the blind. Instead, when people can learn how to take care of their body, take care of their mind, their soul, then they can experience so much more in life and not have their life interrupted by injury and illness. A lot of people think that, aging is inevitable, but we see that people age differently according to their lifestyle. And people who go through a lot of hardship, a lot of stress, and they're not taking care of their bodies, they will age rapidly and degenerate. And what we know now in science, we have lots of people like Bruce Lipton and Dr. David Sinclair, David Sinclair, Ellen Langer, many others who have shown us that aging can not just be arrested but reversed. There are many animals on our planet that don't actually get old. They can still die, from disease or predation or, some kind of catastrophic event, but they don't die of old age. Usually they just get hunted or something like that, or get in a fight and die from infection. So what this tells us is that it is biologically possible for them. That means it's biologically possible for us. We just have to figure out how it works. And I came up with a hypothesis in 1995 that one of these mechanisms could be our socially conditioned unconscious expectation to age. Could be influencing gene expression to create a self-fulfilling prophecy, not just in terms of which genes are being upregulated or downregulated, but also how we live, and how we control that gene expression through behavior, through our diet, exercise, or lack thereof. There is so much that we could do that we haven't yet realized yet, because most people simply haven't been paired with the time and the knowledge and the freedom to pursue those things. That is oftentimes, like, you got to be able to afford, a gym membership, or at least get some weights for home, to afford supplements, to get all the micronutrients that you can't get from your food because either the food doesn't have enough of them or you can't eat the sheer volume it takes to get it. Like me, my mother and I both had very high metabolism, so we had to resort to supplements to get all the nutrients our bodies needed. But for me, I was very fortunate that she had that, insight, because I never ended up having to wear glasses, whereas she and my father did, because they didn't have enough nutrition when they were children to avoid getting scarlet fever. So there is, a lot of people are just going around thinking, oh, well, this is, my parents had this, so I'm going to get it. Well, then they get it because they were just living like their parents do, but also because they expected it. A lot of it's just, we model our parents without even knowing it. And some of us get lucky, and we realize there are better ways of doing things, and we learn things that our parents didn't learn, and we have opportunities that our parents didn't have. And that's ultimately why I personally love working with families with my program, because it gives the parents the opportunity to not only help each other overcome adversity in their personal lives so they can show up better for each other and as parents, but to help their children optimize their cognitive, physical, and social development, because a lot of people have no idea that even just not getting massage therapy on a regular basis, I'm talking at least once a week, minimum, to help regulate hormones and neurotransmitters in the brain, blood flow, and so that we can have less anxiety and depression growing up and feeling more confident, and also just more love.
That's right.
That's right. Again, the power of love can never be understated. It's the only thing that you get more of the more you give it away, right?
That's right. Exactly.
So that's why when we can feel empowered to give, constant love and energy to others, it builds on itself. But people first have to learn how we can access that. And there are very concrete biological strategies we can start with that makes it seem almost natural to do all the other things that we have a hard time doing, because it takes an act of will. And again, that's where we need to have full understanding and compassion for each other as a society, to get rid of all that judgment and shame out there that is holding people back from showing, from just being honest. I mean, so many of us, we don't find opportunities or discover potential because we're afraid to take risks. We're afraid to be vulnerable and transparent to others, because we've been taught that, you're endangering yourself. You're going to be seen as weak. They're going to laugh at you, right? I know people who just pathologically can never be wrong, and it's so destructive in their life, because they're so afraid, and their fear is so strong that they're afraid to discover that they're afraid because they've been conditioned to fear it. Oh my gosh, it's heartbreaking.
Very true.
So
Very true.
If we can learn to take those risks and to be completely open with our feelings, and obviously tactful, and choose the right time. Like, you're not going to want to start bawling on the phone because you just went through over the phone with a client or a customer. When you're going through a heartbreak or something, there's a place and a time for those things. But everyone needs a place and a time and a person to really open their soul to. And that is where we can really find that freedom. So, and that's where the future of healthcare is, where we can learn how to tap into this. I say it on my website that, the best medicine is you. You just have to learn how to tap into it. And we do that through massage therapy, through good nutrition, through exercise, sleep, and hydration, and a variety of other things that we all have access to. Just so many people don't realize is available to them, or is financially inaccessible to them. And so that's the primary thing I'm trying to, the two prongs here, putting this information out there and then making it financially accessible to people. Because here's a good example. We all know that our health insurance premiums go up because other people are not prioritizing their health and they're filing more medical claims. And so the health insurance companies have to increase their premiums to counterbalance the risk. But that's not fair to all the people out there that do prioritize their health and never file a claim and simply show up for their annual exam. So until I realize that's not going to change anytime soon, it's going to take a long time for people to, learn to get on the same channel about prioritizing their health. But again, it's not accessible for so many people because they need more time. And for time, they need to earn more money. And so that's why I created the program that I did, that already doing that for families all over the United States. And, I just hope that a lot of people are tuning into this show this morning so that they can hear about this and they can contact you to find out more about it.
And also with James Vaughn being my guest on Nexxlegacy Radio, where can they find you? You mentioned the website. Do you have social media contacts as well where people can get a hold of you also?
Absolutely. Now, I would say that I don't have a huge social media presence because I've been spending all of my time working with people.
I love it.
I don't have a million followers out there.
Social media to get the word out.
Right.
I love the fact that you don't have much of a presence there. We don't need it. It's a blessing and a curse at the same time. It's only a bonus. It adds to the flavor. It's the cherry on top or the frosting on the cake, so to speak. So thank you for saying that. I've been trying to tell people that forever. You don't need to live on social media. Go out and talk to real people. I promise you, you will never, ever, ever get that back. So, again, it's all about time. So thank you for saying that, James.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it drives me crazy every day, and that all these people out there they think that now they have to have this social media presence to be successful, right? When in many cases it's not. And I think most people, if they're really honest with themselves, the more they pursue it, the less happy they are. I mean,
thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, when people tell me, "Oh, do you have an Instagram account and a Twitter account and a Facebook this and a I don't even know what else is out there, but I'm sure I'm forgetting some right now. But LinkedIn, whatever. I mean, that's how you and I met, so that's cool. But still, and in that vein, some of it is good. But when people start saying, "Oh, you need to have all these different social media channels," I just get woozy thinking about all the time and energy it takes to produce the content for all these different channels. This is why I'm looking for somebody who could just take care of that for me. Just like I'm looking for people to take over the marketing and sales for my company so I can make this opportunity accessible for more people because there are only so many people I can work with in a day. So that's why I'm trying to grow my company so I can have, reach more people faster in this world. My goal is to reach 230 million middle income and above households in North America in the next 2 years because I want to get that critical mass going to lift this tide for everybody because it's going to create the means for social, scientific, and technological progress that will benefit everybody. And I'm not talking about just any kind of progress. I'm talking about sustainable, responsible progress here.
Exactly.
Because we all know that not all technological process is good. In fact, a lot of current world and woes today are due to technology that was not considering the welfare of the planet, human health. That's why we're striving so hard to get to clean energy still. But
exactly.
getting back on point, it's really easy for me to go on some tangents here. The social media. So yes, the website. Good Lord. Wow. Okay. Circling back. So the website is vaughnhealth.com. That's my last name is spelled just like Vince Vaughn, the actor, Vaughn, and health, like good for your health. So vaughnhealth.com. It's a funny thing that my parents named me James and my last name is Vaughn because most people hear James Bond when my name is called out in the classroom or when I answer the phone. Yeah, it's you'll laugh at this, Charles. You'll remember back in the day, and many of your listeners will too, when we didn't have cell phones and caller ID. Our phones were stuck on a wall with a cord and a dial.
Yeah.
And you hated it when people had a 0 or a 9, anything above a 5 in their number. You're like, oh, curse them. So I don't remember why I was calling this lady, but when she asked my name, I said, this is James Vaughn. And she said, oh, right. And I'm like Diana Ross. And she hung up on me.
Oh, my God.
So because I grew up in the 707 area code, I rolled with it. So I've been calling myself Agent 707. Because I really do sincerely, not in any, self-aggrandizing terms, just I do consider myself an agent for change. I want to be the change I want to see in the world. I want to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. And I know a lot of people simply can't afford the time or the money to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. And this came up for me in the wake of 9/11. And we had all this war in Afghanistan and in Iraq. And I'm pumping up my car one day, and I just realized it. I'm complicit. I am responsible for every death out there unwillingly because I need this gas right now to use a car to do my job and do everything I need to do. And I was very bewildered. I didn't know what to do about that. And so I thought, okay, let's science it. It's a combustion engine. What else will combust in it? So I hopped on the internet and I did my research, and I kept running into dead ends until finally, of all people, I was talking to a massage therapist and saying, oh, man, I really don't know how to reconcile this dilemma. And she said, oh, you need to learn about biodiesel. And it turned out that this massage friend of mine, a colleague, happened to be literally, her name was Betty Biodiesel. She was this Bay Area edutainer activist, educating people at festivals like Health and Harmony Festival and whatnot about biodiesel and how people can, convert used fryer grease into, fuel, a biodiesel. Yeah. And they could run a diesel vehicle on it. In fact, there's a conversion you could do to literally run a diesel engine on oil. You just have to get all the bits out. So I created San Francisco's first biodiesel co-op as a solution to people who didn't want to be complicit in blood oil. And so that's part of what I'm talking about here, how we can find ways to, be part of the solution. And sometimes that just means getting more time in our day to do a little bit more, finding ways to have more energy and more clarity, by taking care of our body and our soul, and taking care of each other. And it really does take a village. We are all children of the world, and we have to come together as a village. And so this is why, like what's been going on in, Gaza, Middle East, all these decades, it baffles me because why can't they just share it? Why can't they just say, hey, we all have our faith. Why can't we just share this holy land together in peace?
That's right. People help people. People find ways to be able to pay it forward for each other. I feel like concealing or just holding in all the content that can help so many people is such a disservice to us. I mean, not just ourselves, but the people out there who are, needing to be inspired or supported, or just, have a certain way where they can be able to say, hey, you know what, I really appreciate not just the information, but the confidence that you gave me to level up and do more and be more. Because that's all I tell people. I tell, hey, whatever you're doing right now, just be more or do more. Do something different than what you're doing right now. Your 9 to 5 can be great if that's what you want to do. But if there's something more that you want to reach and achieve and be a part of, or something that you want to build from the ground up, you have to be more than what you're doing right now. And that's important, like, for all of us to really understand that, learn that, and grow from that. And I want to say, James Vaughn is brought to you by VaughnHelp.com. I will make sure that on Nexxlegacy.com that VaughnHelp.com has a prominent place in our business section that we are creating as well. And you're not going to see this is not the last of it. There's so much that I feel like I can do with you, or we can do together, that this is just the beginning of more things that we can
absolutely
expect that
absolutely,
as
well.
Charles.
So, what I'm hoping here is that people who get to your listeners out there get the opportunity to enroll in my program, who need to enroll in it, whose lives can be changed for the better by enrolling in it, and then to come back to your show to share what it's done for them, and so that they can give thanks to Nexxlegacy for bringing this knowledge and opportunity out to your listeners and your communities.
Absolutely. James Vaughn is brought to you by VaughnHealth.com. James, I can't thank you enough for hanging out with me and spending time with myself and the people. And FYI, this is going out to all social media platforms, so Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and on rotation, clearly on Nexxlegacy.com and thousands of others. And if you want to get the word out, I'm your guy. So, this is just the beginning of more in terms of just support and appreciation and paying it forward, because I believe in what you do. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. That's what they say sometimes, right? The tip.
That's right.
Just the tip of the iceberg. So
yeah,
there's more to do.
When this starts getting some momentum, Charles, and the snowball effect starts to happen, it's going to be historic. I mean,
absolutely.
When this vision came to me, and I don't take credit for it. I mean, I would just feel like I was, just the recipient of this revelation of how all these things that I went through for the last 50 years of my life, the last 29 years of my profession, all just snapped into place and crystallized. And I've been pinching myself ever since, like, how is it no one else figured this out already? It seems so obvious now. But I realized, okay, well, that's the gift. I don't like to say I've been chosen. I'm not like the one, but well, I'm going to run with it. I'm not going to let this I'm not going to languish on this. I mean, I feel an obligation to realize this vision. I feel it would literally be a crime against humanity if I go to my grave without realizing my vision, which is a world where we have nothing to fight about anymore, because there's actually already this company called Matchershift that is developing a real-world Star Trek-like replicator, just like in the franchise Star Trek. They can Google that. Ford's featured it, and that's how it came to my attention. Ford's Star Trek replicator, and they'll find the story. And basically, if you think about, if we can independently produce whatever we need, food, water, clothing, shelter, whatever, all conflict ultimately is rooted in competition for resources. So if that's no longer an issue, what will there be to fight about? So that's what I want.
You're absolutely right. There's no need, no reason. Again, it goes back to, we need to stop that anyways, because to me, I think we're doing a disservice for the future of, people that will be here after we're gone. So, the more, I feel like the more great educational and inspirational content that we can be able to have poured into people, the more inspired they're going to be, and the more they're going to double back and think about either their path, their career choices, their health, whatever it is, to say, hey, you know what, I can do better, because we can. We're not perfect vessels at all, but there's ways that we can be able to enhance ourselves and evolve. And I think that's the best blessing to be able to give to the people, period, is gifts like this.
100%. 100%. We've got to be out of time now, Charles, right?
Yep. James, I can't thank you enough for a great interview, a great source of energy, and a great inspiration for myself and others. And I'm looking forward to future things you and I will have.
Thank you for listening to the #1 radio station for the people.